to?
The Nazis invented Neil Armstrong?
Rockets, which put him on the moon. After the war ended, we were snatching up Kraut scientists like hotcakes. You don't believe me? Walk into NASA sometime and yell Heil Hitler. Whoop! They all jump straight up.
Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland, 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 oh, Dixieland.
All right, y'all, thank you for tuning in to Dixieland and the Proletariat. We're going to talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Make sure to like us on social media at Dixieland and the Proletariat or Dixie Prol. And if you want to give your wages to a bunch of rednecks, then subscribe to our Patreon page at patreon.com/DixieProl. Got a lot of cool stuff to give you, including CDs, stickers, and a cookbook. We also have a Spotify playlist with some great artists you also check out. This podcast is brought to you by Newport 100 in a Box, Camel Silver's Black Coffee Vaping, and Operation Paperclip. Shout out to our new Patreon subscribers, Ronald, Zachary, Aaron, Brad, Peter, Justin, Karina, Foster, Michael, and if you pronounce it Appalachia, I'll throw an Appalachia. Our monthly Patreon surplus goes to groups that are run by and help marginalized folks directly. As always, I'm Nelson.
This is Comrade Kate.
And I'm Brother William.
Woohoo, yeah, it worked. All right, y'all. Tyler and Tommy couldn't make it tonight, but we don't have any guests because this is a history episode.
Woo! We're learning. Yay!
Kate, your computer made you go in and out there. That was pretty funny. So,
that's okay. Zoom sucks for recording, but we're
really
doing the
does.
best we can. Dum bum bum.
Yay.
Someday we'll be together in probably 6 to 8 years, but that's fine. That's totally fine. We'll all be vanned by then. We'll all have been taken by the Gestapo.
Oh God, did y'all see that? That shit's fucking wild. That is insane. That is wow.
So as of the day we're recording, we're recording this on July 22nd, which means today is the day that it was announced that Chicago and Albuquerque are next on the Gestapo list, which is really fitting since we're going to talk about Nazis today, right?
Nazis on the moon. Nazis on the moon.
They're responsible for our entire space program. What?
I didn't even know that Albuquerque was popping off like that.
It's not popping off like that. So the justification behind these Gestapo tactics is that we're having a huge surge in violent crime across the entire country, except violent crime experts are telling us that that's not a thing that's happening. And municipal police forces, the people that we're fighting against, are also going, that's not a thing that's happening. So we're in a really weird moment of the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Because local governments and police forces are going, hey, we've been in a lot of conflict with these protesters, but generally things have kind of been under control. And then you showed up in Portland like a fucking bulldozer and ruined everything.
Everything.
So, yeah, it's real fun.
For federal forces in Portland was like a list of graffiti. I mean, it was awful. It wasn't even
bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they've changed the narrative. They're going to change the narrative to whatever they think is going to fit the justification to be able to do this. It's all election related. This is all because Trump wants to be perceived as, the crime and punishment, tough on crime candidate.
Law and order.
Is there a correlation today between this announcement and the fact that a national poll was released in which it was stated that Texas is voting for Joe Biden now? I think every time we see him, numerically, losing grip on things that he think are safe, he's going to escalate even further. I don't think he's going, if Biden wins in November, I do not think that Trump is going to step down. We'll see what fucking happens, but there's no reason to believe that we can trust anything to behave the way that it has in the past. Unless we're talking about the past in the context of Germany in the 1930s. So,
Yeah, did you see the mayor of Chicago? The mayor of Chicago was like, they can come if they, it was like, I don't know, it was something like, God, I forgot what she said.
Lori Lightfoot straight up like, y'all ain't coming here. Like that's her attitude towards it. And Lori Lightfoot is very much pro cop.
She said but though. It was like, but unless they're going to like help out like local law enforcement with something. And I was like, I caught that at the end. I was like, oh shit. And it was like, no deal with the protesters, but if you're here to help back up police against whatever and they ask you to, then I mean that's cool. But I'm just like, what the fuck? My big thing is that like these fucking like no-named hodgepodge together federal police, right? Like did not have any badges, had no identifying marks, had no nothing. They just had a badge that said police, and that's really easy to get.
You can order that on Amazon.
Yeah, and I'm just waiting for like these right-wing fucking militias to look exactly like these people. Just start scooping these people up off the streets and fucking making them disappear. Like that's the next step.
I don't think you need to wait for it. I wouldn't be surprised if that's already happening.
Apparently, have you seen like Twitter stuff?
I don't think that we're going to see bodies turn up. I think we're going to see people disappear.
Apparently, people on Twitter are saying that like they have unconfirmed reports of people like with enhanced interrogation techniques, sexual assault, like in these when they're being detained for like 2 weeks.
Well, there's no accountability. There's no accountability when it happens like this, and so there's just the safest thing that you can do is assume the worst, because when you don't know what is happening. I mean, we're to a point where like I was in my Zoom conference with my therapist the other day talking about this, and I paused for a moment and I looked at her and I was like, Mrs. Therapist, we'll leave her anonymous. Mrs. Therapist, like, do you understand that we are having a conversation where I am talking about people being disappeared by the federal government, and you, my therapist, are not telling me that I'm being hyperbolic? You're sitting here validating and confirming my fears right now. Like, that's how fucking real this shit is. It's like, you guys remember like a year ago when people thought we were all like nutty extremist radicals? You guys remember that when like people were like, Nelson, Will, Kate, you guys are there you go with all your commie red bullshit again. You're so cute.
That's not going to happen.
Extreme.
That's not going to happen.
We have a history of the federal government supporting Nazis. Should we talk about it?
We should.
Let's talk about it.
It's Warner von Braun.
Welcome to the Operation Paperclip episode. Mute your asses. I'm starting ourselves off. So we've been talking about doing this episode for a while. We're all really excited about it because it touches on a lot of things that we really love and one thing that we really hate, because we all love history and we all love science and we all love tech and we fucking hate Nazis. And so we get to talk about all of these things. So for a little context and background, we're talking about Operation Paperclip right now. If you're not familiar with what that is, you clearly haven't watched the show Hunters. It's available on Amazon Prime. We're not saying you should give your money to Amazon. We're saying you should get somebody else's password to watch it, because don't give Jeff Bezos any more of your fucking money. But in a nutshell, what Operation Paperclip was a giant exercise by the United States government to ship a bunch of Nazis to America so that they could beat the Soviets in the space race. That seems really, really, really reductionist, but that's the reality of what happened. So basically, towards the end of World War II,
towards the end, Kate freezes up. There we go.
There we go. Sorry, folks. We had a little technical difficulty there. It's because the government's listening in on us and they don't want us to tell this story. That's fine. It's not fine. It's probably not real either. It's probably super real. Who knows? So the United States and Britain at this point were like actively in Germany. Germany is like really on its heels, mostly because Russia was beating the shit out of them. Here's a good moment to remind you all, dear listener, that I have multiple degrees. I am a licensed educator. I taught world history, U.S. history, government and civics, and I do know what the fuck I'm talking about. This isn't just like I'm actually qualified to do this, according to like accredited sources. So anytime you were learning in your history class that the United States,
Kate, we get it. You're we get the flex.
Yeah, I'm like real smart and I have it on paper. But the reason for saying that is because you all were probably taught in history class that the United States and Great Britain beat the Nazis, and that's not fucking true. Russia did it, and we just took credit for it. because we're really good at that. We colonized history. But at this point in time, we're in Germany, we're looting around on the ground, particularly going after German science and tech. A lot of the recon that was being done there was to recover, particularly their bomb development programs. Nazis are really, really efficient people. And the interesting thing about modern America is we have Nazis who don't believe in science anymore. And that's not traditional Nazism, you guys. They were really, really into the sciences. They were hardcore into STEM. I wish everybody else was muted because I think that I might have just killed Nelson and Will on that.
It's revisionist. It's revisionist Nazis. It's like
it is revisionist Nazis.
Ideology.
If you
I didn't think it gets stupider, but they did.
Yeah, for our vast swath of alt-right and far-right listeners, if you really want to be a Nazi, you believe science and you'll wear a mask. But that's fine.
And you get a STEM degree.
Mm-hmm. It's cool. You can get a job in Huntsville. It'll be great. We'll get to that later. But in March of 1945, a group of American soldiers get to Bonn University, and they're rooting around and they're clearing the space. And in the tank of a toilet in a bathroom at Bonn University, somebody finds a list of names. And they were just like, lists of names tend to be an important thing. I don't know what this is. And they take it back to their superiors and they start going over it. And they start going down the names of people on this list. And they realize this is all scientists, Nazi scientists and engineers who were like pretty high ranking in the Third Reich and had been stuffed in this toilet so that nobody would find it. And they're like, we need to find everybody on this list, particularly a guy named Werner von Braun. So they go and they're hunting down all of these people. And then on April 30th of 1945, Adolf Hitler shot himself, and that was the coolest thing that Adolf Hitler ever did. Probably the only cool thing that he ever did. So good for you, Adolf Hitler. Thank you for doing that. But also fuck you for taking that joy and pride away from somebody else. So somebody else could have enjoyed that. So the U.S. creates the Combined Intelligence Objectives Committee, and their entire responsibility is to go down this list and round up everybody. And initially, they wanted to arrest everyone on this list, but these are brilliant. I hate to say this, but these really truly were absolutely academically brilliant people, and the reason that they were going to arrest everybody is because there was already a huge pattern of these guys were fleeing Germany, and they were going to places like Spain and Egypt and Argentina, which you may have heard before. There is a huge population of Nazis that wound up in Argentina. So the Pentagon gets a hold of the list, and they completely change the objective of this because of Werner von Braun. The reason that they were so fucking high on Werner von Braun was because this is the man who was the architect behind the V2 rocket program. V2 rockets were used to bomb the shit out of England. These were used in a couple of bombings that killed about 3,000 people total in London. So it was a quickly developed program that was very, 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 very successful. But this program was fucking evil. It was conducted at a facility called Mittelwerk that most of the labor used there was exploited slave labor. That's redundant. It was slave labor. They were taking other scientists and engineers who were Jews out of concentration camps and shipping them into Mittelwerk to do all of the work and killing them immediately following. So all of these bombs were being built by the hands of enslaved people. So obviously we got to get this guy and use him to the best of our ability. What a fucking cool guy, right? So instead of arresting all of them, the Pentagon came up with this really great plan to bring all of these Nazi scientists on this list to the United States and their families, their wives, their children, their grandmas, give them amnesty, and, make them work for the United States and do it on the grounds that we're trying to keep them out of Soviet hands now. Like the war is over. We're going to get them over. If we don't bring them to the U.S., they're going to go to the USSR and they're going to do all of this work for the Russians. And then all of this amazing potential technology is going to fall into Soviet hands. So all of this was done. Bringing them all here had absolutely nothing to do with a desire to truly advance tech and to truly advance engineering and everything to do with beating communism, of just being quote unquote better than communism. And that makes absolutely no goddamn sense, because ultimately this meant that 1,600 Nazi scientists were brought to the United States and sent all kinds of places like Fort Bliss, Texas, and White Sands Proving Grounds, New Mexico, and Huntsville, Alabama, to work as quote War Department special employees. So Harry Truman was real wishy-washy about it. And he was like, really just like, yeah, I get where the Pentagon's coming from. Like, this sounds like a really great idea to be able to, use these brilliant minds. But like, also they're Nazis and Nazis are bad. And we just spent this whole time fighting this war to kill them and beat them and stop their ideology. So like, maybe we shouldn't, but we should. And so they came up with this great compromise, like this just brilliant idea where let's just pretend they're not Nazis. And they just scrubbed everybody's entire like war records and built completely new, basically like every thing that you think about, like the witness protection program, they did that for these 1,600 Nazis. And that seems like a really insane thing to do. So it's like the rational part of your brain goes, they couldn't have been that bad if the US government was willing to like allow this to happen and bring these guys here and allow them to live like really beautiful, full lives. So they clearly couldn't be that bad, except no, let's take a look at who these people were. It was guys named like George Rickley, who was actually tried for war crimes because he led Mittelwerk, the bomb factory where all of those slaves died making V-2 rockets. He was acquitted, so maybe he's not that bad. He was acquitted due to lack of evidence, which is really weird because he had been awarded multiple times very formally in medal ceremonies by the Third Reich. So this man had literally stood on a dais and had medals pinned to his chest by good old Adolf Hitler himself. But we don't have enough evidence that he actually committed war crimes, other than the fact that he was very publicly recognized by like the Naziest of Nazis. I don't want to say uber Nazi. I'm not that fucking cliche. Guys like, Walter Schreiber, who he worked in preventative medicine. This guy was an epidemiologist. Kind of wish we had him around now. No, I don't. He's a Nazi. He worked at the Air Force School of Medicine, and he came under a lot of scrutiny. He was investigated pretty heavily, and ultimately not found guilty of any war crimes as well, which was really, really weird because as they're investigating other people and they're showing photographs of like ranking Nazi officials together, all of these Holocaust survivors that had emigrated or escaped to the United States would pause and point Walter Schreiber out in composite photographs and be like, who is that? Who is this man? And they were like, we're not asking about this man. And they're like, I know him. I've seen him. And he was a doctor at Ravensbrück, which is a, for most people, lesser known concentration camp that was a medical facility. And when a concentration camp is a medical facility, that means it is a space of human experimentation. So all of these people were going, I saw him. He was in the room when I was a test subject in human experiments to test pain thresholds in human beings, to test new poisons and using people as test subjects, on, weird genetic experimentations on people. He was in the room for all of it. And eventually the US wound up shipping him to Argentina because they couldn't, too many people recognized him, that they couldn't completely scrub his record. They could not effectively hide this guy. So they helped him evacuate to Argentina. And that brings us back around to Wernher von Braun, who we've already really discussed. his role in V2 rockets. But he's the guy that all of these concessions were made for, because he ultimately wound up being the chief architect of the Saturn V rocket program, which launched the United States to the moon. I'm a history person. I'm not a scientist. So I'm actually going to hand off to Nelson at this point. He's going to talk a little bit more about what Wernher von Braun was doing over here in good old Huntsville, Alabama. Nelson?
In Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah. So basically, von Braun gets over here, right, with his 1600 stooges. And like Kate said, especially for von Braun, it is a rewriting of history, because he was made out to be very apolitical, and like there's satirical songs written about him, and like it's a running joke in America at the time that like, oh no, he wasn't bad, he was apolitical, he was just, he was just following orders, and he was an opportunist. And that debate,
he was just following orders.
I know, right?
What a classic fucking Nazi.
It's still a debate amongst historians today, apparently, like, did he visit the camps, did he pick who was going to die, who was going to live? Then there's people who say like he didn't go, he was just behind the scenes, that like banality of evil, like they try to say Eichmann was, like all this stuff, like it's fucking crazy. But like so a little bit more backstory when he's in Europe. So this myth of like von Braun being apolitical kind of starts because in 1944 he was actually jailed by the Gestapo because Nazi party members had infiltrated his science group, right? And they said that he was not necessarily loyal to the Nazi party. And so basically the Red Army is marching in, and von Braun and his science folks are like, oh shit, we need to get to the American side because the Red Army is going to either kill us or, hang us, or it's not going to be pretty. I think the prisoner of war of Nazis that were captured by the Red Army had like 30% like survival rate. And on the American side, English side, it was like 0.5. Like they were definitely going to live.
That's one of my favorite things about the characterization of the necessity of needing to get these Nazis over to the U.S. so that they don't fall into Soviet hands, so that like Soviets don't have access to like the potential tech in their minds, is that like if they had been captured by the Russian army, if they had been captured by the USSR, they would have been fucking executed. Like that's the huge difference. Like that is an absolute fabrication that we brought them here to be competitive or to like stop, communist technological development. It was so that we could just have a leg up on them because they were not going to use these guys.
Exactly. Because the Soviets had their own like rocket program and space program in the works. I think Pros of the Roundtable did a really good episode on that. So if that's still up, check it out. Like actual Soviet space program. Will, you going to say something?
Yeah, von Braun joined the army like 3 months before Hitler became chancellor or whatever. But his willingness to like work for the army as he just wanted to do like rocket shit, right? Ever since he was a little kid. But his willingness to sell out his work for the army strikes me as like, you don't even have to be a Nazi to recognize that that's evil there. You know what I mean?
Straight up opportunist. He's just like, oh yeah, they're going to give you the money.
It's not like disputed that that Mittelwerk, the V2 rockets were built with slave labor. And I think more people died building the rockets than died as a result of the rockets.
Yeah. I think it's about equitable, actually, which is really weird. It's like almost 1-to-1.
I think the debate is that like
not including testing. Like,
yeah, like okay, you got muted.
Yeah, not including testing that tech, just the actual build. It's about equitable, but they also 100% tested like the blast area on people. They totally did that.
Yeah, at Middleburg, that's where they tested the like atmospheric pressure, and they tested like basically the Luftwaffe wanted to know if pilots how high of altitude they could bail out and still live. Like they basically boiled people alive. They did hypothermic testing, like atmospheric testing, like all this stuff happened in Middleburg. So like when
shoved people out of airplanes to see what the impact would be like on a human body. Like, name a weird thing that you would be curious about, but you would never actually do to a living creature unless you're like fucking evil. Yeah. And they did it.
Like, they put people in barometric like pressure chambers and cranked it up until they exploded. Like, just to see, like, they would see if like people could drink seawater to live. Hypothermia, they would put people in like freezing cold water and then throw them in like really boiling water to see if they could bring them back to life. It's just some really fucked up shit. And like the question is like how much, like the question, like fuck von Braun anyway, because just him being a Nazi alone, he can go fuck himself. But like the question amongst like historians, quote unquote, is like, how much was he involved in that? And like, did he actually go to the camp? And did he do this and he do that? And it's like, it goes back to like Eichmann question of like the banality of evil. Like the whole thing when Eichmann's on trial in Jerusalem, the thing is like, he is just like a pencil pusher and he's behind the desk and he's doing whatever. But no, he is orchestrating he's orchestrating Hungarian Jews, like 500,000 of them sent to Treblinka and were gassed. Like, he's orchestrating that as the governor general of Hungary.
And some of those 500,000 people like gassed at Treblinka, literally my family.
Yeah.
That's where the Jews of Vasilkovic get sent, which means that my family that didn't make it to the US, they died because of that. And I think, like, have you all read Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay?
I haven't, no.
Okay, well, both of you should read that, but I will mail you copies. You know, I'm all about mailing everybody books. This will be familiar to anybody who has not or has read this book. If you haven't read it, it's a really, 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 really wonderful piece of literature. There is a discussion so there is a character, this doesn't spoil the whole story, but there's a character in this book whose brother died on a boat that was coming from Europe to the US as a child that was bombed by a U-boat. And it gets to Nuremberg, and they're trying the people on the U-boat and they're asking them why they did this. And the response was, it's in the line of the Nuremberg defense of, we were just following orders, but the exact line in Cavalier and Clay is, they were children, we were wolves. So I have a great issue. I think that's like, it's chilling and I cry every time that I read that. But I take great umbrage with the motivation for any historian, for any sociologist, for any contemporary anthropologist, for any cultural anthropologist who wants to look at behaviors of Nazism and ask them and try to equivocate or rationalize the behavior in any way, because absolutely under any kind of fascist regime, there is a great deal of coercion, but that coercion is mostly done through like indoctrination practices. So they were conscious of the decisions that they were making. They were conscious of their participation and they knew exactly what they were doing. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that, whether or not you were flipping the switch on a gas chamber or just a fucking pencil pusher behind a desk. A Nazi is a Nazi is a Nazi. End of story.
Fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about, everybody had to be a member of the party. Anybody with any kind of morality would have resigned and gone into exile. And for whatever von Braun's apolitical, whatever, it's just another nail in his coffin in my book. Being apolitical with in an era like that is just sitting on the sideline while evil marches by.
Exactly. They should have done what Rudolf Hess did and like stole a plane and fly to the UK and crash it and be like, look, I'm here to negotiate peace. And they're like, yeah, but you're going to go to jail. But yeah, so when people say that like von Braun he knew what was going on and he is just as culpable as all of them. Like they all should have been rounded up and shot.
But I really think that the United States and probably Britain would have been more at ease with a Nazi-occupied Europe than with a Soviet-occupied
Oh, yeah,
Europe.
Definitely.
And that's why
the worst enemy of a fascist is a communist.
Yeah.
It's not a centrist. It's not a capitalist. It's not democracy. It is certainly not democracy. But no, I mean, like you've seen that throughout the entirety of the 20th century, and you're seeing it right the fuck now in the United States. They're not going after the libs. They're not going after liberals. They're not going after Democrats. They're going after declared socialists. They're going after declared communists. They're going after declared anarchists. They're going after people who don't affiliate but engage in behaviors that are, that's what the Declaration Against quote unquote Antifa is. They don't give a shit about libs. They don't give a shit about Dems. They give a shit about the farther left you are, the scary you are.
Oh, that definition will widen though.
Yeah, Dems, watch out. I've been right on my predictions a lot on this show. So,
first they came for the trade unionists.
Mm-hmm.
And can you believe that they have redone that quote on the Holocaust Museum in D.C. to take out the first they came for the communists?
Oh, yeah.
Are you serious?
Well, you didn't know that?
No. What
they
the
don't
fuck?
have first. Yeah, they don't have the poem as written.
Oh my God.
No, it's real weird. And I'll tell you what, when you're a Jew and a communist and a trade unionist, it gets real fucking freaky. I got a lot of intersections in that poem. Sorry, but Nelson, back to Werner von Braun.
Before we go off, I wrote a 40-page paper on the Holocaust in undergrad for my history minor, so I could talk about this for multiple episodes, but it's not pertaining to Southern working. Well, this is okay. Von Braun is pertaining to Southern working class history because it's at fucking Huntsville. But basically, what ends up happening?
Fucking Huntsville.
Fucking Huntsville. God damn it, Huntsville. Huntsville has the.
They're over there in Huntsville putting people on the moon.
They have.
We should use that in the intro this time. Yay.
No,
okay,
I have
okay.
the.
Sorry.
Okay,
go ahead.
I have the great intro from Archer.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh man, there's so much good stuff for that.
There is so much. But anyway, what the fuck?
It's real late, y'all. We are very sidetracked. We don't give a fuck. We're gonna talk about what we want to talk about. It's our goddamn podcast.
Damn right. There's actually just going to plug a book real quick. Alabama Jews and the Holocaust by Dr. Dan Puckett. Pick up that book because it is about how Jewish Alabamians in the South not only had to deal with the traumatic experience of the Holocaust coming over, and then Jews that were already here before that having to deal with that, but then also having to deal with Jim Crow. And so it is a very great historical look at how Jews in the South, particularly Alabama, had to deal with all of that. But anyway, Werner von Braun. So basically him and his posse hide documents in a mine, and then they go get them. This is this elaborate thing to get to the American lines. So von Braun is in America. He and his crew at Redstone Arsenal. So Redstone Arsenal is when Will doesn't mute his mic and gets up to do whatever. Redstone Arsenal is the military branch.
He just fell out of his chair and ran off.
God damn it, Will. Who refuses to get a fucking USB mic. Hopefully we'll be doing stuff in person soon and we'll just pipe Kate in on her own channel. But anyway, so Redstone Arsenal is basically America's version of taking the V2 rocket and making it, intercontinental ballistic missiles. And we have nukes now. So let's put those nukes on these missiles that Von Braun and those people invented, and let's do a guided system, and let's roll tide. So basically that's Redstone Arsenal. So Werner von Braun, he wants to do space. His whole thing is space, the final frontier. That's where he wants to go. He wrote books about travel to the moon and to Mars, and he wrote this book, I shit you not, and I'm glad y'all are both unmuted because you're gonna laugh at this shit. He wrote
The Hollow Moon.
No, he wrote this book, right? What the fuck was it called?
Way to take notes, Nelson.
No, he wrote this book. I was seeing what you wrote in the group chat. He wrote this book, Project Mars. Project Mars, a technical tale. And von Braun, trying to scrub his Nazi past, was the colonies on Mars should be ruled by an elected leader known as the Elon.
I'm sorry, the what?
Bullshit.
Elon?
Nah, dude, the Elon, fucking Elon Musk. Ah!
He predicted SpaceX?
There's Boras on the moon.
Ad astra per sanguinem.
He fucking predicted SpaceX? Are you serious?
The blood.
Oh my God.
What is it, Will?
Ad astra per sanguinem.
Holy shit. Yeah, known as the Elon, I shit you not. And so, like, okay, to sell his space shit, right? He goes on TV with the other noted American anti-Semite, Walt Disney. And you have Von Braun, a Nazi, teaming up with Walt Disney, an anti-Semite, and probably a Nazi. He goes.
I am like smashing my head into my desk right now in frustration. But also, we've seen like Walt Disney like put his ass on TV and was just like, look at my friend, German scientist Werner von Braun.
Oh my God! So he's
going to teach me how to freeze my head. Be entertained, children.
Severed head.
I just want to say
floating head of
when the Soviets went to space, they did it for the pure love of science, for no profit motive, and that if it weren't for them sending Sputnik up, America would still be fucking bullshit in the 50s. We'd have it would be bullshit.
We'll get to that later. I got numbers on how America felt about that. I will roll the tape on that later.
Okay, so basically, so he's on TV with Disney and Mickey Mouse going, ha ha, we're gonna go to the moon, ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. So basically he's selling like space exploration. But America has a conscience, like for a little bit of a conscience at this moment, because he was first rejected. He was rejected by NASA to do the Nazi stuff. To do the space stuff. Because he was a Nazi. And because his Redstone arsenal was basically meant for war and not space travel. But the Soviets being like, why do we need two programs? We just made one and the rocket didn't go. So they got the rocket that the Soviets...
Never do that accent again. Oh my God.
It is moose and squirrel. So like they took the Soviets, they're like, hey, I'm just going to take our rocket that we're going to launch like fucking nukes on and put a fucking capsule on it and send this fucking satellite that goes beep, boop, boop into space. And so they beat us to fucking space with the satellite. So that's when they're like, oh shit, like Von Braun needs to do it. So an American company first epically failed and their rocket collapsed and the monkey died. And so they were like, oh no. And so Von Braun gets it and he ends up becoming the director of Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, where he builds the Saturn V rocket. So Von Braun is like, yay, I get to do my Saturn V. And so at this point, everyone forgets that he's a Nazi. And in 1977, he is awarded the National Medal of Science because, fuck it. But I do have to say that, Tricky Dick, he... and his folks decided that space programs, because of Vietnam and having money we needed for Vietnam, decided to cut NASA's funding and cut all the stuff that Von Braun wanted to do and bomb Cambodia. And so basically they cut the funding and Von Braun got mad and he resigned in 1972. So he resigns in 72. He gets the National Award of Medal for Science in 77. And basically also that same year, earlier than that, he gets diagnosed with kidney cancer. And so,
sorry, that's not funny. Kidney cancer is terrible, and Nazis don't deserve that either. Yes, they do. Sorry, does sarcasm even translate on a podcast? I don't know. I don't know. It does. I think it's kind of. I think it's kind of like texting. You can't see my face, like you don't know. But yeah, no, fuck him. Fuck his kidney.
Will, what did you say?
I said, my man's pissing Eisen und Blut.
My Wiener Schnitzel hurts when I pee. Oh no.
Oh my God.
There's Nazis on the moon.
Anyway.
So in 1977, he follows his leader and dies. So Von Braun's dead and gone. And he's a Nazi and he can go fuck himself. Basically, there's not a lot about him while at Huntsville, except for he's NASA's person. He's toted around.
Didn't he become an evangelical Christian?
I believe so. He was a lapsed Lutheran and then became an evangelical.
Who knows what was scrubbed? I mean, we only barely scratched the surface of, the stuff that there's evidence for. But as far as his personal beliefs or some of the darker shit that he was involved in, I mean, God only knows what the U.S. government got covered up, because he made an about face, man, and turned around and tried to save his image. And
Well, so the trying to save his image is actually really important to the space race, not just for the sake of it was being run by a Nazi, but for the sake of we are taught that the space race is this lauded moment in American history and that it is this, triumphant time where we did beat the Soviets when no, we didn't. We didn't beat them to the moon. They got a module onto the moon before we did. We got the first manned mission onto the moon, but we didn't actually beat the Soviets to the moon. And 2, no one gave a shit. Like, when the space race was actually happening, we're all taught that this is this like triumphant uniting moment in US history, except it fucking wasn't. And like, I want to talk about it a little bit more if y'all are up for it.
Oh yeah. It's a marker that we set that nobody else was worried about.
It's deeper than that.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Now watch me bang Marilyn Monroe, Bobby. Come here, Bobby.
I am so glad that JFK showed up to give us those words, because it's really important to note that JFK was actually very open about the fact that his obsession with anti-communism was what drove the space race. He was very open about the fact that he wanted to beat the USSR to the moon. He never talked about technological advancement. He never talked about research. He straight up was like, I want to beat those goddamn red commies.
I want to beat those damn commies. That's why I got Bobby to tap Martin Luther King's phone.
And he never had public support. Like, I'm not even fucking kidding. Like, we've got the numbers. There is polling data that demonstrates this. And I think that's fucking ridiculous. So 10 years after the moon landing, so we're in 1979 now, right? 47%. 3% less than half of Americans said that it was worth it. That the time and the money, particularly the money spent on this, was worth it. 20 years later, we're in 1987 now, it suddenly bumps to 77% because we hit the Reagan era and we rewrote history and we wanted to make America great again. So we recontextualized the space race. But the reality of the situation was that during the 1960s, the highest that space race approval ever got from the public was 45%. 45% No, so it's like most Americans didn't want this to happen. Why were they not excited about this? Because we were in the middle of the fucking civil rights movement. Like, we're still in post-war America. Nobody wanted to spend money on this shit. Everyone thought it was a ridiculous allocation of funds. It never had black support. It never had left support, because the civil rights attitude towards it was that we are spending billions of dollars to send educated white men to the moon. Why? We want to know why. And no one could give a fucking straight answer, all the way to the point where there's a sociologist, his name's Amitai Etzioni. He wrote a book in 1964 called Moondoggle that examined like the fact that this was a very, very heavily funded exercise in anti-Soviet propaganda, that no one could give any real scientific reason for a manned mission to the moon. There was nothing that putting a man on the moon would give us scientifically that putting landers on the, like just any rover on the moon, would give us, other than just straight up bragging rights. All the way to the point where it's like, you can look at actual, like all of the missions that led up to this. Gemini 3 is a really great example. That's the $30 million sandwich mission. If you're not familiar with that, Nelson's making a face. Do you know what this is? Are you familiar with this?
Someone paid $30 million for a sandwich?
Basically, taxpayers did. So basically what happened was this wasn't a moon mission, but it was an anti-gravity mission. So we did launch people into space for the purpose of testing what food is functional in anti-gravity environment. So the ultimate conclusions there were things that needed to be coated in like a thin layer of gelatin, essentially to prevent crumbing, so that when you bit into something, you weren't having things like fly out. Remember when I said I didn't
have
know
that
science?
problem.
I fucking know science super hard.
I need to and all my food needs to be caked in Jello because I have a problem. It gets in my beard and in my chest hair and my shirt, and it just gets bad.
If you're a bedroom snacker, you need some NASA snacks because they don't crumb.
Bedroom. It's not just bedroom. It's like
this way you're not getting shit all in your in your sheets and what have you. But so they launch into space, and all of a sudden, one of the two astronauts on this mission reaches into the pocket of his spacesuit and pulls out a corned beef sandwich and proceeds to unwrap it. And his partner was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "It's a corned beef sandwich." And he's like, "Where did you get it?" And he's like, "I brought it from home." And, ground control is going, "I'm sorry, you have a what to who now? We don't have corned beef sandwich on our list. Where'd you get that?" And another astronaut had given it to him and been like, "Oh, we'll see if you can smuggle this into space." He's like, "Hell yeah, I'm gonna smuggle this into space," because astronauts are frat boys and they do shit like this. Here's the thing, is we all act like astronauts are our best and our brightest, but people who were launched to the moon were not picked because of their intelligence. They were picked because they fit into the fucking seats. They were a specific weight and they were a specific height.
And they survived all the tests. They're basically glorified test pilots.
Yeah, no, they didn't even get to go into the tests unless they were of a very specific height and weight. So it was just like there was already a very limited pool. These are not geniuses.
And also, they didn't get fucking burned alive in Apollo 1.
Right?
I forget about that boondoggle.
So homeboy, moondoggle, we've been through this, but this fucking dipshit is in outer space holding a corned beef sandwich and takes a bite at it. And whatever good piece of rye bread this corned beef sandwich on proceeds to start crumble, and little crumbs start floating around. And he looks at his buddy and they're like, "Oh shit." And little pieces of crumbs are floating through 0 G's and going closer to the control board and closer to seams in the capsule. And they're just like, "Okay, so rye bread does not work in outer space." But the real problem behind this wasn't that rye bread doesn't work in outer space. It's that they were so fucking inept at their jobs that somebody was able to sneak a sandwich into outer space in their fucking pocket. And you know what happens when that happens? An entire goddamn congressional investigation. So there were like multiple fucking hearings about this. So these are the geniuses that people are spending billions of dollars to launch into space.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And this is all happening. This is 1964. This is happening concurrently with the passage of the Civil Rights Act. So people are being fucking fire hosed on the streets of Birmingham while some dipshit gets launched from a couple of miles north into outer space with a goddamn corned beef sandwich going, "I'm so funny." So guess what? The American public didn't give a shit about the space race. All the way to the point. So Apollo 11 goes to launch. That was the good one. That's the one that worked.
Allegedly.
Here's the pictures that you never see of Apollo 11. Was 500 people protesting at Cape Canaveral. And by people, I mean, it was literally the Poor People's Campaign showed up. This was led by Robert Abernathy. Robert Abernathy took over the Poor People's Campaign after Martin Luther King was assassinated. He was one of like MLK's right-hand men, and he led a march of 500 men who were hauling mule-drawn carts to Cape Canaveral to demonstrate the disparity in the poverty of Black people living in the South against what we were doing to get people on the moon to achieve that giant leap for mankind. Because
a symbolic victory, because ultimately it takes $12 a day to feed an astronaut and $8 a week to feed a Black child. So what the fuck are we spending our money on? So yeah, there was never actually any real support for so it's like when you were talking about in like 1972, Nixon being like, the moon, who cares? We're going to stop it.
I don't want to go to the moon.
What he was pulling the plug on, NASA had designs on building a base on the, this is hilarious considering the whole Elon thing. They wanted to build a base on the moon to be a base for Mars exploration. And we're in the middle of civil rights. We're in the middle of the Vietnam War. Like people are not super keen on government spending. We're entering, and basically it got pulled mostly because of Vietnam, because finally it was white people were being affected by all of these shitty policies. So that's really like where that pulling the plug came on. If the gas crisis had come earlier, it would have ended earlier. But yeah, no, the economics of the 70s actually affecting white people is what ended the space program, because there was no point in it ever fucking happening.
Speaking of white people sucking, right? We have to realize that even von Braun and all his Nazi brilliance and like his 1,600 people that he brings over, right? And he's like, oh, the moon, all this other shit. Behind the scenes, it was black women like Mary Jackson doing the tabulations and doing the computing and doing the math that got us to the moon. So as always, white people are the front and the face of this, when behind the scenes, it was intelligent, very smart black women actually working as human computers and writing the code and coming up with the algorithms and doing the math, doing the grunt work that actually got these rockets off the ground into the moon. Because if they weren't
trajectories and all kind of mathematics, that makes my head explode.
if these dumb
Katherine
fuckers,
Johnson is a better Catherine than I will ever be.
Because what Kate said about the sandwich is, if these dumb fuckers, these cousin fucking jackasses were in charge of this shit, they would have overshot the moon and fucking crashed right into Mars. They they would have had their colony on Mars, but they'd all be dead, and it would be a total mistake. Because obviously, if they're dumb enough to fucking sneak sandwiches into their capsules, they don't know how to fucking plot trajectories. So like the entire like space thing it's such the American version is such bullshit, because the Soviet version is 1,000 times better. Like just like Will said, it's for literally like space exploration and science, and there's no profits involved, and they're just doing it. And when they came together, they were able to do everything from the first satellite, the first humans, the first animals, the first spacewalk, the first woman in space, the first space station, the first around the first spacewalk, the first orbit around the Earth. Did they get orbit around the moon first? Did they orbit the moon first?
I don't know. I don't think I have that in my notes. There's like a whole fucking list. Let me go back and check.
But the lost cosmonaut theory shit's pretty cool though. Like those Italian radio operators like picking up like cosmonauts that got scrubbed from the record that were like lost in space and like cursing the Soviet space program. They're like, no, Stalin.
It's
Ever
really
since then.
Easy to look up lists that compare side by side, like notable moments in the Soviet space program and the American space program. And the thing that's really notable about it is when you look at those lists where it's columned side by side, is how much longer the Soviet list is than the American list. And it's like the American list seems more significant because it's like first manned moon landing, whatever. The only thing that I have in my notes for this in particular, because I was like really fixated on the moon landing, is just that Luna 9 landed on the moon on February 3rd of 1966. So more than 3 years before America made it to the fucking moon. We did not beat them to the moon. We act like we did. We say that we did, but it's because we tend to just kind of collectively ignore for the word manned in first manned mission to the moon. There's a reason that adjective is there. It's because we were at the first mission on the moon, because it happened, more than 3 years earlier. But thought exercise for everybody. Because Kennedy was so upfront about wanting to beat the USSR in the space race, because he was inheriting this legacy of bringing Nazis to America to work on this shit. Here's like my question and I'm not expecting either of you two to have an answer to it. And I'd be really, really curious if anybody else has thoughts on this, to please like fucking hit us up on social media and let us know what you think about this. Because like, this is something that I think about more than I should, because I fixate on weird things. But I want to know what people think in regards to, would we have invested the time and money and resources into this had the Bay of Pigs not been such a disaster? Had we not had this epic failure against Cuba in communism in 1961, would the United States have jumped into the space race as aggressively as it did to flex on communism? That's Mike. I don't have an answer. I really want to hear other people's opinions on this. So I would highly encourage people to reach out to us and like give us your fucking opinion.
Fuck, that's a good one.
If they're really well educated and you can cite your sources, I'm excited to hear it. If you just have straight up conspiracy theories about it, I'm excited to hear that too. But I really want to know what people think about that.
I listen to my brother.
The Bay of Pigs is successful.
Huh?
I just can't imagine a scenario in which the Bay of Pigs is a successful invasion.
That's not, but it's like, that's not the point behind it. It's that, you know, it was there. I mean, it was, if it had been victorious, it would have been a Pyrrhic victory. But, you know, like, it was such an exercise in fucking, you know, like when.
Yeah.
Okay.
I listened to my brother Bobby and he said, don't do it, Jack. And I was like, oh, Bobby, okay, I won't do it.
Y'all ever do something like real stupid in front of somebody, and so the next time you see them, like, you're weird flexing on like other stuff that's ultimately not very significant? Like, that's what I'm talking about, is we did something so stupid in the Bay of Pigs that so demonstrated that we don't have a leg up on communist countries. Did that put us into that mentality of, well, gotta beat any communist somehow? Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's weird.
Would have the fear of being technologically eclipsed by the Soviet Union would have made us pursue it, I think, just as hard, my opinion.
Definitely militarily. I don't know if they would have. I don't know. God, I think that if it's a
hard question, right?
The fear of being eclipsed, I think, would probably drive us to push that military budget to the max.
I think if the Bay of Pigs would have succeeded, the Soviet Union would have ramped up more military stuff, and they would have been like, we have to, because like the U.S. had missiles in Turkey, so they need that foothold in the Western Hemisphere to like launch off. So like, damn, that's a good one. If y'all hit us up on social media, you're going to talk to me. So just be forewarned. I don't really do anything. I just, like, you know, I'm lonely, so you can talk to me. I don't care. But I'll forward stuff on to Kate. Yeah. I
want to know. I want to know where the gold at. And I'll tell you what, if you come up with something like really brilliant, I will read it out loud on an episode. I will report back your incredible thoughts on this. I will make that happen. If you want it. So it's like, I mean, I'm not going to signal boost your bullshit, but like, if you have like a really good thought on this, like, I will 100% bring it back to the table for discussion.
Hell yeah. I want to do more impersonation.
I want you to put on your thinky caps. I want to hear y'all's thoughts on it.
I like pretending to be.
Most of y'all are smart cookies. A couple of y'all are real fucking dumb.
About the end of World War II and hypotheticals. You know that the Soviet Union declared war on Japan like 2 weeks before Japan surrendered. That the atomic bomb was a display to the Soviet Union to show them our power.
Yeah. Everybody knows that. I feel like that's generally accepted now. Like, that's a conversation I've had with my students.
I've made fun of Vietnam to Vietnam vets. I've made fun of Iraq and Iraq vets. But the one thing that I almost got my ass whomped over was for saying that the United States committed war crimes in World War II.
Now,
what?
In academic circles, it is very much accepted that the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not necessary to the defeat of Japan, and that they were to go, hey, Stalin, look what we can do. That's very well accepted.
And Japan feared so much being beaten by the Soviet Union and turned into a communist country. And I think Japan still has the largest communist party of a non-rule of a state in which the Communist Party doesn't rule.
Do they?
I have no idea. That's a Will fact. It's a Brother William fact.
Somebody fact check Will on that and let us know.
Will is wearing an old school anti-Bush.
Totally stripped of its social.
Are we to this point? Are we out of the conversation and on?
We need some
our general state of affairs. I still think my leggings are the best thing on this show right now.
Oh, the Halloween. It's
Y'all,
Braun.
my dryer broke, and I'm wearing Halloween leggings that have unicorns with witch hats on them because time is no longer real. This is
It's
fine.
been rough. We've all been muddling through. I saw one of my friends today on Facebook said that he applied to join the Space Force. I told him, I said, I can't wait to be losing territory in 20 years, 15 years, having to negotiate withdrawal from the Sea of Tranquility because the lunar Taliban is taking it over. Just creating problems where there were none.
We'll straight up join the IRG space program.
Oh my God.
Oh, I saw that the UAE is sending a mission into space. They're going to find out if you can drink camel piss in zero gravity.
I don't feel like camel piss is any different than any other substance you could be drinking in zero gravity, but more power to you.
Hopefully they don't bring a fucking goddamn Reuben on the fucking space.
Yeah, my only advice to them is leave the corned beef at home.
The probe, actually, funny enough, has more rights than most of the women that designed it.
Holy shit.
That was the darkest shit I've ever seen when they had that, robot woman come out at that Saudi conference or whatever.
Wait, what?
What? We're totally off the rails now, but fucking go, Will.
Fuck it, who cares?
A couple of years ago, Saudi Arabia, UAE had this Gulf conference or whatever, and then they had some robot woman come out and read a script or whatever. Look it up. It's absolutely bizarre because that woman, that robot has more rights than all the women in Saudi Arabia. It's just insane.
Yo, Saudi Arabia is our ally. Yo, listen to Blowback. That podcast about the Iraq War is fucking, it's fucking wild. I'm going to plug them. I don't give a shit. Listen to Blowback. That shit's so good. But going back to Operation Paperclip real quick, I have this book. I haven't.
Nelson's like, we're doing this episode the way I want to do it. Bitch, it's over.
Annie Jacobsen wrote a book called Operation Paperclip, the secret intelligence program that brought Nazi scientists to America. I'll plug it in the show notes. But if y'all want to know more about Operation Paperclip, Kate, didn't you do one on your YouTube channel?
Yes, there is an episode that covers basically exactly what we just fucking talked about. Not verbatim, but pretty fucking close.
They do.
You can refer to either my Instagram, Kate Can Do History. It's up on the IGTV portion of that, and it's on the YouTube, Kate Can Do History. Also, to plug another good friend, my dear friend in England, Oliver Green. His podcast, History Emporium and Pals. He regrets the name because it is very long and he has a very thick accent and it comes out very adorable when he says it. But he and friend of our podcast, Dan from Real Life Ghost Stories, we did a little kind of collaboration together talking about miseducation and things that we wish we had learned and things that we wish we learned better. And we went over a lot of the space race over that. So I would recommend checking him out as well and definitely getting to know both Ollie and Dan and all of their really great content too. Also, Moondoggle by Amitai Etzioni. And then I have one more book that I want to recommend that I lost my note on. So somebody else start talking, please.
I'm going to add that the podcast is also brought to us by Box Wine. Definitely adding that in the beginning.
Okay. I want to say, so the first time before I joined the podcast permanently, when I did the first episode as a guest, I drank a lot of whiskey. And
yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. I drank a lot of whiskey. It got weird. It's fine. We're all together. We're all friends now. Shut up, Nelson. And the SRA episode, I drank a lot of wine. I went on a good streak where I wasn't drinking on our shows. But full disclosure, I'm on my 5th glass of wine tonight. Guys, I earned it.
I'm just glad we're all at the friend level now.
I mean, I got a check from the government and I bought a box of wine. So
hell yeah.
Suck my commie Jew dick if you have a problem with that. Drink wine and make a podcast.
Manischewitz, motherfucker.
I was looking up this book.
Y'all love you expand this unemployment.
Yeah, they better fucking expand the goddamn unemployment. This is bullshit.
Okay, sorry. Carolina Israelite, How Harry Golden Made Us Care About Jews, the South, and Civil Rights by Kimberly Marlowe Hartnett. Put that on your list for talking about Jews in the South and the Civil Rights era. It goes over some of the stuff that we talked about here, and it's also just generally a really good book. Put that on your reading list. And then Nelson just wants everyone to read Settlers.
Everybody reads Settlers. Speaking of, the next episode is going to be great because we're going to be talking about Indigenous history. We have a OG fan from the beginning. An Indigenous woman's going to come on and explain the history of Mount Rushmore and Stone Mountain to us. And that is going to be great. That is going to be a great fucking episode.
I really enjoyed that Creek episode, and I wish that we could talk to some Creeks that weren't, porch band.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll do like the episode revisited. We need to go back and do like episode revisited, some other stuff. But apparently, a lot of people are doing it seems like every podcast, especially like Blair Mountain is like the mythology of Blair Mountain is like such a thing that
Blair Mountain's super popular right now, and
Blair Mountain's really popular.
But I'm like here for it. Like everyone do your own fucking take on it. Like even if you feel like you're not bringing a new spin to it, like. You can't have that conversation or tell that story enough times. So like fucking go for it.
But like, listen to our episode on it.
And definitely listen to our episode on it. But Krish Mohan on YouTube, he's a really great comedian. He did an episode on his YouTube channel about Blair Mountain. That was really great too. But like, I just want, if you guys are making stuff or having these conversations and you feel like you're like making a content list and you say to yourself like, oh, other people have already talked about this. Like,
keep talking about it.
Keep talking about it. Like we're not having these stories enough. There's a reason that you all are getting excited that a lot of people are talking about it. So talk about it too. Like fucking do it. Cite each other. Talk to each other.
There's probably a ton of episodes. Yeah, there's probably a ton more episodes that go more in depth into Operation Paperclip and Warner von Braun. But like, we just going to do it because it's a Southern working class history and there's Nazis on the moon and in Huntsville.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And we're going to talk about some stuff that like never gets brought up. Like everyone, right? So like right now, like the Tulsa race riots and like Black Wall Street's a big thing, but like the Wilmington race riots, like no one talks about that in North Carolina. Where Will told me this. They literally
1866 Memphis race riots. Let's do one on that. I think I just tapped myself for that.
They literally overthrew the state government. They had a coup in North Carolina that started like a race riot that turned into a coup, and no one fucking talks about it. So like
Rosewood is right near
Rosewood's another one. Yeah.
Man.
We get the movie though.
I bet everyone's getting real excited about all of this stuff we're going to do. And I hope they are. And I hope that if they're not hearing things that they want to hear about or people that they want us to talk to, that they reach out to y'all. If you have somebody who you think we need to help tell their story, or you have something that you want to bring to the table, like, suggest.
I would love nothing more than to learn something from a fan. I mean, that would be
great.
The coolest interaction.
Please bring shit to us and be like, hey, y'all should talk about this because we're reading it and we're going to look at it and we're going to consider it. And most of y'all are very smart and really like you and like bring shit to us. Like,
so hit us up on social media. We have an email address.
Org?
We have DixiePro@gmail.com. What'd you say, Brother William?
Everybody is our unmiked co-host.
Exactly. So hit us up at DixiePro@gmail.com, all one word. And, or hit us up on social media. 9 times out of 10, you're going to talk to me. And I'm lonely.
10 times out of 10, you're going to talk to Nelson unless he's recently been banned from Facebook.
No, I think you're going to be talking to me. So I'm like, hey, it's me.
It's Nelson. It's always me. Nelson. If you want to talk to me or Will or Tommy or Tyler, you need to find us on our own social media.
Yeah.
I don't even have a Facebook. Like, you're gonna have to find us on your own. But feel free to talk to Nelson. He's delightful. There's a reason we're friends with him.
Yay. Yo, I'm not gonna simp on Maine, all right?
All right, finish wrapping up where people can find us. Drop that Patreon. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Please talk to me. So lonely. Oh my God. That's why I started the podcast. People don't understand how fucking miserable it is being a leftist in the South. Jesus Christ. All right, Charles. Does anyone else have anything you want to talk about good old Warner von Braun?
Nah, man. Just
that song is legit. Can I just play it over the microphone real quick?
No, I think you should just continue to plug the social media, drop our Patreon again, and let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's make like a tree and get the fuck out. All right, y'all.
Do it in post.
Brother William, have any words of wisdom? Real quick.
No, I'm all set.
Brother William.
I'm all set.
Brother William's going to tell you don't partake in that swine. Don't do it.
Nelson, close the fucking show.
I like talking to you. I don't want to leave.
We don't have to leave. We just have to wrap it up.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. I muted you too quickly. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to do it. Hold on.
No. I just want everybody to know he fucking muted me.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm not a bad person.
I hate you so much. Nelson hates women.
No, God. Please. No. I just got ghosted. So I'm like, please, I don't hate women.
I'm sure you deserved it. Wrap the show up.
I didn't do anything. Fuck off.
All right, we're done.
Okay, ready?
I'm done.
At Dixieland of the Proletariat, we believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons, those being worker-owned means of production, decolonization, and the self-determination of all oppressed peoples. Please follow us on social media at Dixie Prole, and we are coming to you from the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement, Montgomery, Alabama, and Bluff City, Memphis, Tennessee. We would also like to recognize that we are recording on occupied land that rightfully belongs to the Muskogee and the Chickasaw nations. As always, I'm Nelson with Comrade Kate, Brother William, and if Tyler was here, he'd say, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. We'll see y'all next time.
War Eagle.
Fuck you, Will.
That put America in the forefront of the nuclear nations? And what is it that will make it possible to spend $20 billion of your money to put some clown on the moon? Well, it was good old American know-how, that's what. As provided by good old Americans like Dr. Werner von Braun. Gather round while I sing you of Werner von Braun, a man whose allegiance is ruled by expedience. Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi schmatzi, says Werner von Braun. Don't say that he's hypocritical, say rather that he's apolitical. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. Some have harsh words for this man of renown, but some think our attitude should be one of gratitude, like the widows and cripples in old London town, who owe their large pensions to Werner von Braun. You too may be a big hero, once you've learned to count backwards to 0. In German or English, I know how to count down. Und I'm learning Chinese, says Werner von Braun.